Alright everyone, this is my solo guide for the brand new Vesper's Host dungeon, and more specifically the first encounter within the dungeon, which is called Activation. Now I wanted to put this little guide together just to basically just go through some tips and tricks as to what I was doing, why I was doing it, and just hopefully make your lives a little bit easier when it comes to specifically running this encounter. Now, to be fair, then this dungeon can be quite challenging to do solo, and I haven't seen too many guides out there in terms of explaining what to do and how to do it. Fair enough, the dudes that do the solo flawless runs are absolutely elite players, but sometimes I think you just need that little bit of an explanation. And so I thought with this one specifically, then there are a few little stumbling blocks that can really trip you up, especially if you haven't got the timing down right, which is kind of the main thing with this one. There's a little bit of a relay race going on with it, and there's a few things that you can do to just ultimately make your life a little bit easier. Now, the main thing is obviously there's the scanner and the operator buffs that you can pick up, and with either of them buffs then obviously you only get 1 minute to use them buffs before, if you don't put them into their relevant holding areas, then you're gonna essentially die and wipe, which if you're going for a solo flawless run, then it's not something that you want to do, to be fair. So for this run anyway, on the Warlock, we are essentially using a getaway artist setup, which I will leave a dim link down in the bottom for you in the description, and we're also using Risk Runner, which is going to give us that nice damage resistance to all the shanks, which are essentially just trying to zap us down with arc damage at any given moment, and there's an absolute ton of them. So Risk Runner really is coming in clutch with this one, and you'll see in the gameplay in the background that I'm obviously using this thing pretty much 99% of the time, apart from when we need to do a little bit of boss damage and maybe clearing out some of them yellow bar enemies in between the runs in the areas. So I think the main thing that you need to be aware of when it comes down to a solo run in this is not so much the timers, because once you know where all the scanners are, where all the pads are and stuff like that, then that bit isn't going to be too tricky. It's more a case of managing the ads and managing the route and everything in between that, so that you do have enough time to do what you need to do when you get back to the main room with the nukes and stuff like that, and staying alive. Any of your favourite builds that are going to allow you to do that, whether that's restoration, devour or invisibility, then you're going to be absolutely set up perfectly for this. Now obviously with this first encounter, then there are 3 sets of paths which you need to go down, 3 sets of paths that you need to clear in any of them rooms, and then obviously collect the nukes and then go and dunk them in the central terminal. Now, when I first started trying to run this, I was always running to, obviously when you come into the room and you spawn in, there's 3 rooms that you can go in. There's one technically on the bottom right, there's one on the bottom left, and there's one on the top left. They are labelled as various parts of the body, and I think the best one, which you can see in the gameplay in the background, to go through first is the brain area. Now I think the main reason for that is because as the runs go on, and if you've got the music on and you're edging towards the finishing line in terms of beating this encounter solo anyway, then I think doing brain first is just going to be a ton easier. There's a little bit less pressure. If you mess it up, then it's easy to just start again and go through it, and you're going to be able to get to that point again. And I think once you get down the brain area, then I think that it is probably the easiest one to do. And then from there, I think the next one that you need to do is lungs. Now these 2 are probably the trickiest, and I think that is because of the nature of the jumping puzzles. Obviously you've got them freezing shanks and stuff, which are going to try and slow you down on the way back, and if you do get caught up with them and you haven't got any of your your arc or solar buddies up, or any of your decent AoE damage to, you know, take them out quick enough so that you don't run up your radiation timer when carrying the nuke, or you don't run out of time by, you know, dropping the nuke and letting that count down too quick. Then I think that, you know, managing your runs by doing these two routes first, starting with brain and then with lungs, I think is probably going to be the easiest ones for you to, you know, manage your time, you know, not to put too much pressure on yourself, which is one of the things if you are going for a solo run. And obviously the main reason you want to do that solo run is to up the drop chance of getting Icebreaker on completing this dungeon, as well as the triumphs for the seal as well. So you know, if you are doing a solo run, then you want to try and just make it as easy as possible. Doing brain, then doing lungs, and then doing that final section is going to make it a ton easier. Now also with this one, then obviously once you've done that first area and you're going to have dunked your scanner and operator buffs in the pods, then technically on this second area with lungs, then the scanner is going to be probably in the worst area possible, because you've got to go all the way around to get the operator. Now there's no massive issue with this, because as long as you've brought some decent gear, you know, obviously we're running Risk Runner to negate the damage, but this is going to really set you back, you know, maybe 10-15 seconds depending on how fast you are at putting that operator back into its pod, because obviously you can't put it into this yellow one here because that's got the scanner in. So now at this point the nuclear core is out and we've got to run all the way back and put it in the terminal. And you know, look, the timer is already going down. You know, by the time we get there, essentially we are at 45 seconds, which is not good, but it gives you a little bit of time to just prepare and make sure that you've got your arc buddies up to, you know, get rid of these ads. You know, arc conductor's already proc, so we're fine there in terms of damage resistance. But you know, it can be a little bit tricky, that one, so just be mindful of that. You know, don't mess around. Make sure you're taking out these, you know, machine priest assistants and the freezing shanks, you know, thinking about it before you making the jump, so you're not jumping into the freezing fog. You know, take down the other one from up here. You know, it's not the trickiest, especially on normal mode, but you know, these are just the sort of things that you've got to be mindful of, and through, you know, a little bit of trial and error, that these are sort of the best routes and you know, methods that I've come up with. And obviously once you come out of that room, the brig's going to be there, and likewise with that first area, you want to just stay up on this top platform. You're going to get a lot of shielding from the walls and the glass panels, and that's going to give you plenty of room and plenty of time to destroy the brigs. Now in terms of the rest of the weapon setups, then we've got the lost signal, which is the stasis area denial frame grenade launcher. This thing's doing absolutely bits in this dungeon. I've seen a ton of people using it. It is just a really good little weapon. I think I've got an auto loading roll. I can't remember exactly what the main roll is, but the auto loading version of it just makes everything absolutely easy to manage. You know, there's a ton of ads that are gonna, you know, cause you a few issues, and just shutting down areas with it. I mean, they're even good for these little tunnels in terms of taking out the assistants and stuff like that as well. You know, they do good damage over time, and then you're allowed to go in with your Risk Runner and your arc buddies and you know, whatever else you've got. Now the main issue I did have in terms of using a heavy weapon with this build and this run was the fact that, especially when you get to that final boss, you know, I think some of the projectiles actually do interfere with the grenades from your grenade launcher, so just be mindful of that. Don't always be pinging that thing out. There's always ads trying to run in front of you. You know, you don't want to be blowing yourself up with your grenade launcher. It is you know, something that you kind of just want to use sparingly. When you know that you've got time to use it, you can, you know, dunk them on the brigs, dunk them on the assistants, and you know, you're going to be good to go. Obviously when it comes to scanning the pads, then obviously just take your time. If you have to go back and you have to redunk the operator and pick the scanner up, then, you know, go and do that. Go and pick the scanner back up, double check which ones you're going to need to use. I think in this room here is where I specifically did this on this run. I couldn't quite remember where the last two were, and I thought, I'm in the final room, time's not an option. you know, it's not something I'm worried about. I couldn't quite remember which ones were which. I was like, right, no, I'm going to go back, I'm going to dunk the operator, reset the timer, go pick the scanner back up. There's, you know, the timer's reset on the scanner now, so I've got another full minute, and I can go back and double check which ones I need to shoot. And ultimately, you know, it didn't become an issue. I went back, put the scanner in, and there we go, picked up the operator one, and you know, we're on for the final push in this area. Now, in terms of setting up this last bit, then obviously once you've got the third nuke, then you're going to spawn in essentially the big boss brig for this area. And you know, you want to be set, you want to have all your weapons fully reloaded, you want to have pretty much all your abilities up, so don't burn through your super, don't burn through your transcendence ability if you're running prismatic. Keep them for that final boss. On a solo run, you're going to need absolutely everything, and by the time, you know, in this video specifically, by the time you get there, you're going to have like 30 seconds or so to nuke that big boss, and having all of your abilities up is going to be absolutely key, especially your super and any of your, you know, your high damage, you know, high DPS output sort of weapons and abilities. You know, I mean, I took a little bit too long destroying these machine priest assistants here, and as you can see, I'm at 30 seconds by the time I pick up that nuke. It's not a good look, but I mean, we managed to take out them enemies, you know, just in that area, so we didn't have to mess around with any of the frozen shanks or anything like that. And like, again, that can be something that can slow you down, but the main thing here is drop that nuke and sit on it. You know, on this one with the warlock, with the Song of Flame super, then we've got massive damage resistance. You know, it's not, we're not going to die at this point, but it's more a case of making sure you're getting that damage output. As you can see, I'm still near to the nuke, near enough so that I know that the timer's still ticking down. I've still got a little bit of time. We've popped that transcendence now, we're going in with the heavy grenade launcher, and it's just a case of going to Pound Town and watching that timer. It goes down to 1 second, I pick it up. I just chucked a transcendence grenade on it, and I knew that I had a little bit of scorch damage going and a little bit of jolt damage going from everything, and I was like, I'm just going to risk it here. That was squeaky bum time moments to the max, and honestly, it is all just about time management with that last one. Like I say, we took a little bit too long with the nuke, but we got it done. And like I say, it's more a case of going that brain area first, then through lungs, and then into that final area. It's going to make your runs a whole lot easier, it's going to make everything a lot more manageable, and it's going to allow you to set yourself up nicely for the final parts of the solo runs. Obviously, with the bosses in the second and final encounter, they're going to be a little bit tougher, but in terms of mechanics wise and stuff like that, then once you've got this down, and the management of the scanner and the operator, and then ultimately the suppressor buff, then, you know, I think you're going to be able to get that solo run done easily. And as DPS methods become a little bit more refined in the coming days and weeks, then stuff like this and just little knowledge bombs are going to allow you to make these solo runs easier. You're going to be able to get Icebreaker, you're going to be able to get that seal done nice and easy. So I hope that this build helped you out. Done a little bit of a rundown of what of the gear and the subclass there on the screen, so if you enjoyed this video, drop a like, leave a sub if you've been here before. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.